Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today we're going to be building a B rig. So the idea for today's video has come about through me watching a recent Anderton's video where they built B rigs, essentially second guitar rigs to use in the event or in the case of your normal rig failing or going down or something breaking. Now thankfully I've never had that issue before gigging or rehearsing in the real world, but it got me thinking now that I've accumulated a few guitars, quite a lot of pedals and a couple of amps. Can I build a usable secondary rig that could be used in the event of a disaster? But could I also build something that inspires me to come up with new musical ideas and just actually make use of all of this equipment that I've accumulated? So you can go down a few different routes here, and the first one is the obvious one, which is building a condensed version of the kind of rig you use all of the time anyway. So replicating your number one guitar, your main pedal board and your amp, to kind of do the job that you want your A rig to do all the time. So if it does fail in the event of a gig, you can simply plug in the pedal board or use the replacement guitar or amp, and you know you've got a rig and a sound that you are familiar with and you can trust. But there's a secondary route which I think is a little bit more interesting, which is actually taking other things you've accumulated over the years, different types of guitars, different types of pedals and amps, and actually creating a rig which is about inspiring different musical ideas. Maybe you're stuck in a rut when it comes to songwriting or coming up with ideas, and you need inspiration from somewhere. And I've always found actually experimenting with different bits of gear is a great way for coming up with new ideas, and actually having a B rig, something that you have ready to go and ready to plug into at any point, is a great way of just accessing those different sonic tools that you can quickly tap into to maybe come up with some new ideas. And maybe there's a third route, which is a combination of the two, of something that has a level of familiarity whilst offering something a bit different to what you're used to that can help you creatively. In this video, I actually want to explore those second and third routes a bit more. Can I make use of things that I'm not currently using, which gives me something different to what I've already got? I've already done in-depth videos on my current live rig, the amps that I use, the pedal board that I've built, the main guitars, as you can see behind me, that I use. So this one's going to be more about digging into those guitars, amps and pedals I'm not currently using very often, either live or in the studio, and can I pull something together that's different and inspiring creatively? So naturally the first place to start with a challenge like this is with the guitars, and for me there's only really two that I could consider for a challenge like this. The two guitars that I don't play as often as my Sir Classic S and my PRS Custom 24. Now the guitar that I've landed on is the Gibson SG Special. I've done a full video on this guitar and why it was my very first guitar love. I'll never get rid of this. But if I'm being honest, I play this guitar less than any others in my collection. I think it plays and sounds great. It's perhaps not as refined as my PRSs or my Sir. It's perhaps not as tonally versatile. Things like the tuning stability isn't as good. The frets don't feel quite as nice. The neck isn't quite as comfortable for me as other guitars that I play. So naturally I don't gravitate towards this guitar as often, but I still love playing it. And I actually think building a secondary rig using this guitar will help push me down a completely different route to the one that I usually go down if I play my PRSs or my Sir. Now for amplifiers, it's a much easier choice. I only have two physical amps in my collection at the moment, my Friedman Pink Taco and my Victory V40 the Duchess. Now there was potentially a third option here. I could have gone for a plug-in. Now, I've used Neural DSP quite a bit before. I think they're great for certain circumstances and certain uses. But honestly, for this challenge, I wanted to build a rig that I could use more often for me and for my use cases, and that includes rehearsing in live studios and playing live gigs. I would never use a plugin to do that. So in this challenge, there really was only one option, and that is the Victory V40, the Duchess. Now, pedals is where it gets really interesting because I've got a few pedals I've accumulated over the years. I don't have the biggest collection by any means, but this is where you can mess around with different combinations of pedals that you would not thought to usually pair with one another, really get creative with the different sonic options. So this is my pedal shelf. As I said, it's not a huge collection of pedals, but I've got different options here to choose from. I've got a series of delay pedals that I've tried over the years. I've got different drive options, including clean boosts, drives, fuzzes, and then I've got a couple of different modulation options and a looper. And here's where I landed on the board, and as promised, I kept it really simple, limited myself to just 4 pedals. But I wanted to have a fuzz on there, and the only other fuzz option I've got is the Mythos Golden Fleece, but honestly, this is an incredible little pedal. I've done a video on 5 different ways to use fuzz, which I use this pedal for. Despite only having one knob, it is actually quite versatile and it stacks brilliantly with other drive pedals. The Dane, I don't really need to say any more than I already have about this pedal. It's really phenomenal. It's one of the best drive pedals I've ever played or owned. It's actually got a boost and a drive in it as well, so I'm kind of getting 2 in 1 with this option. Bogo Boss Super Chorus CH1, not a fancy Wazacraft or anything like that. This is about 65, 70 quid new. But honestly, a great sounding chorus pedal and kind of the quintessential chorus sound that many of you will be familiar with. And I wanted to go for the Delay Llama, really because it's a character delay. So is the Lucky Cat. But this, I think, has that warmth and analog sounding delay feel that you don't really get from the Flashback or the Lucky Cat. So that's why I kind of opted for this one. Let's plug it in and see how it sounds. So all in all, this has actually been a really enjoyable and worthwhile thing to do. It's forced me to think differently about my rig, and therefore it's forced me to think differently about my playing. I actually found myself playing differently when I was playing that guitar through these pedals, through that amp. I'm not currently in that kind of creative block, or songwriter's block as they sometimes call it, where I need that inspiration from somewhere. As I said originally at the start of this video, I was inspired by an Anderton's video talking about B rigs to be used when your A rig goes wrong. What I like about what I've built, even though it wasn't entirely intentional, was that if anything did go wrong in my A rig, actually I could swap any of these components in and I would be more than happy. To sound cliched, ultimately your sound is in your fingers, and some people might disagree with that, but it's what I think. So no matter what you kind of play through, you'll sound like you. But what this does is it just forces you to think outside the box a little bit more. And what I kind of like about it too is that element of things sitting on the shelf gathering dust. Where's the fun in that? Actually doing something like this and forcing yourself to play those things occasionally is really fun. There's a reason why we bought these pedals and these guitars in the first place, and just letting them fall by the wayside, it doesn't seem right. So again, thanks for coming to my channel and watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and until next time, I'll catch you later.